Hello dear chess friends, I'm International Master Andrey Ostrovskiy and you're welcome to the series of lessons dedicated to King and Pawn Endgames. In this one we're going to discuss very important combination that is called a pawn breakthrough. In this first example, which is a model of this combination, we can notice that black's king is far away from the king side where white has advanced pawns that are very close to squares of promotion. So white's task is to promote one of the pawns. And you will see now that sometimes it is possible to do even without the help of the king. So white starts with the g6 move, which looks not very clear at the moment, but you will very soon understand what is going on. So g6 creates two concrete threats, to take pawn h7 or to take pawn f7, and then white will just promote the pawn. So black simply can't ignore this pawn and has to take. Let's have a look on h takes g6 first. So now we can see that h file can be potentially used for pawn h5, right? So only one move ago, it was absolutely impossible even to dream about the promotion of the h pawn because there was a pawn on h7 simply blockading the pawn. So now it is actually possible, and the only limit is pawn g7. So white plays now f6, again creating a threat of taking pawn g7 and then promoting the pawn next move, so black simply has no time for anything else but taking this pawn. And now nothing stops pawn h5 from moving further. So pawn goes to h6, and now we can see that this pawn promotes in two moves, which means white easily wins because black's king can't help to stop this pawn, and black's pawns are not that advanced to create sufficient counterplay moving to squares g1 and f1. Black simply has no time for it. Almost the same happens after f takes g6. So now we can see that f file is more or less open, right? And white again eliminates pawn g7, but now for this purpose white uses another pawn, so pawn goes to h6, attacking the pawn, creating a threat of taking on g7 and then promoting pawn g7, so black is forced to take on h6, and pawn goes to f6, the same. So pawn simply promotes in two moves and white wins. So as you can see, the layout is the following. White sacrifices two pawns here and promotes another one. So it depends on the concrete situation with which pawn to start actually. So you have to check different possibilities until you find the correct one. For example, other moves are not possible. For instance, if white starts with the h6 move, then pawn takes h6, and if g6 trying to make this breakthrough, hoping for f7 takes g6, and this will be just a transposition. So here black simply takes with the h7 pawn, and white has nothing but problems and a losing position actually. So if f6, then almost the same. So pawn takes g6, again hoping for h7 takes g6, but black takes with the f pawn here, and well, white can't promote his pawn h5 here. No open files created with this order of moves. So every time you have to understand that there is a correct order of moves. So the situation of the pawn breakthrough, when you understand it is possible, when you have these two great signs. The first sign is that the opponent's king is far away and your pawns are advanced and your pawns are healthy, right? So it is usually the sign of the possibility of the breakthrough. So it doesn't mean that you can achieve your goal with any order of moves. So you have to calculate accurately to find the correct order of moves. In this particular case, it was g6 first, and then depending on with which pawn black takes, white sacrifices another pawn and finally promotes the last one. Let's have a look on the other example. In this position, black even has an extra pawn, but the problem is the same. So king is far away from the queen side where white has advanced pawns. We have one more pawn on the queen side here if compared to the previous example where we had 3 pawns on the king side. So here both sides have 4 pawns on the queen side, which makes position a bit more complicated, but the idea is the same. So white needs to sacrifice some pawns to promote at least one. So white starts with a b5, very good move, just grabbing more space on the queen side, getting closer to promotion square. And now it's clear that if black takes the pawn on b5, white wins without a breakthrough, so pawn simply takes on b5. And now the next move will be a6, promoting the a pawn. King is far away, so king can't stop this pawn. So after b5, black's best strategy is to get closer with the king. So king goes to g4, black tries to occupy some squares closer to promotion squares, so closer to back rank actually. But black is not in time. So white continues with the powerful c5 move, and now we can see that 2 pawns are hanging. The one on b5, another one on c5, but both are invulnerable. For example, if black takes on b5, then we can see that a file is the potential file of promotion, right? So c6 wins here, eliminating b7, just like in the previous example. B takes c6, a6. But here we can see that white sacrificed his pawn on the 5th rank, so it should be considered the b4 continuation, because black starts a counterplay, right? So here it is not enough, but in any other position it might be dangerous. So a7, b3, a8, queen, b2, and white is just in time to stop the pawn. Queen goes to a2. Almost the same happens after d takes c5, so very similar things. Now d file is possible to use for promotion purposes, so b6 should be played here, eliminating c7 pawn, then d6, c4, d7, d8, c2, and again queen d2, just stopping the pawn and winning the game with the extra queen. So after c5, black tries to make one step closer to pawns. King goes to f5, but it is not in time. So here, white has 2 ways of winning the game. The one is just to play c6, creating threat of c takes b7, and after b takes c6, b6 wins, right? So nothing can stop b pawn from being promoted. King is not in time. Another possibility after king f5 is to start with the b6. So here, honestly, white has alternative ways of winning the game. So after c takes b6, c6, b takes c6, white takes on b6, and again, pawn on the b file promotes. White wins. Let's have a look on the other example. In this position, we can notice another very common sign of the possibility of the breakthrough. So doubled pawns. So this is a drawback in the pawn structure, and in many cases it makes a breakthrough possible. So black has to start with the f4 move here. Only this move helps, because if black starts with the h4 move, then after g takes h4, f4, creating a threat of g3 here, after which black will definitely promote something. White has a blockaded move, which is g3, and now black can't change the situation. Everything is blockaded, so white wins with the extra material. So f4 should be played here. And now let's have a look what is going on. So if g takes f4, everything is clear. So just h4, and black promotes the h pawn without problems. So white's king is far away. If e takes f4, then black plays h4. And now after, let's say, g takes h4, otherwise black just plays h3, promoting the pawn. So g takes h4, and now g3, right? Attacking f2, forcing f takes g3, and e3 promotes. So what to do after f4? To try to get closer with the king, right? King d5, usually it is the best chance. After that, black continues with h4. Extremely tricky situation here, because at first glance looks like king takes e4 helps white to get closer with the king, right? By the way, g takes h4 leads to a breakthrough after g3. So f takes g3, f takes e3, and king is not in time to stop pawn e3. So king takes e4 looks like just enough, but black plays f3 here. So it is very easy to make a mistake. For example, h3. G takes h3, g takes h3, king goes to f3, and that's it. So pawn is stopped. After f takes e3, f takes e3, black can't make a progress with the passed pawn because king is here to stop it. And if nothing else happens, king goes through f2, g1 to h2, gradually wins this pawn on h3, and white wins the game easily. So only f3 is the correct move here, blockading white's king, so actually closing the way to g2 square. f3, g takes f3, and h3. So now white's king is not in time to stop the pawn h3 because white's king is not in time to occupy g2. So in two moves, there will be a queen on h1 and black should win. Let's have a look on the final example. At first glance, this position looks completely hopeless for black because white has an extra pawn, white has very active king, pawn d4 is quite vulnerable, so white has a chance just to take this pawn in two moves, getting closer with the king to black's pawns, and so on. So a lot of different factors just showing that white's position is much better, probably just to win one. But we can see that pawn structure gives black a chance for a breakthrough, and since black has nothing else to try here, everything else looks just losing, black has to play for a breakthrough. So first of all, it is important to blockade pawn a3 playing a4, because if black starts with the wrong pawn, if black plays b4, then after a4 there is no breakthrough anymore, and king simply gets here to grab all the pawns gradually, and white easily wins. So a4 is a correct move here, preparing b4. King goes to e4, now b4, opening up the a file. And now it's very important to understand the following. First of all, a takes b4 loses on the spot because of a3, and king can't get closer in time to stop the pawn a3, and white is not in time with his counterplay. So let's say b5 a2, b6 a1 queen, b7. So it's possible to play queen a7 or queen b2 or queen b1. There are so many different ways of stopping the pawn. It is also possible to use this concrete position of the king on e4 and to make a skewer. So queen h1 check, and then takes b7. Black wins with an extra queen. And the next thing is that after king d4, despite it looks like just a move that wins because true, the king is here to stop pawns. For example, if black plays b3 here, a wrong move to be honest. So takes b3, takes b3, king c3 takes the pawn, and white wins. So instead of that, black takes on a3. Still not very clear why it should be okay for black, because white has king c3 move, and if black plays a2, then of course king goes to b2, takes a2, and then takes a4 pawn, so white just eliminates all black's pawns. So the point here is that after king c3, black doesn't play a2 and instead plays king to g5, and all of a sudden we can notice that white occupies very ugly position. So pawn on c2 prevents white from a great maneuver like king c2, king b1, king a2, grabbing black's pawns. So without this maneuver, white's king simply can't move, because once the king moves somewhere, let's say to d2, it is no longer in time to stop black's pawn. So a2 and wins, a1 queen. So king has to stay here on c3, which means that white has only moves with the pawn d3, but pawn d3 is not okay without the help from other pieces, so it is just vulnerable. King takes g4, eliminating one pawn, and as we discussed, white has only moves with this pawn, and in a couple of moves this pawn becomes just a simple prey for black's king, and well, king takes that, and now we can see it is just the final Zugzwang. Now white has no more pieces to make a move except for king, so king has to move, and after king moves, a2 decides. So very interesting pattern with two doubled pawns on the a file. It could also happen on the h file, so worth remembering. So the pattern is actually this one. So two doubled pawns, right? And one pawn for your opponent that actually prevents your opponent from getting closer to your pawn. So this pawn c2 in this particular case plays a great role to make black's combination completely justified, because here we can notice white simply has no maneuver. King c2, king b1, king a2, grabbing those pawns. Pawn a4 is also very important to fulfill this pattern, because b3 square is extremely important, because without this pawn on a4, king simply gets closer, plays king b3, takes a3, and that's it. And pawn a3 itself controls b2 square, so as we can see, these pawns managed just to close the b file for this king, which actually closes the deal. Thanks a lot for your attention. See you next lessons.